Hello, everyone, and welcome to Amara's Voice. I'm a teacher and an uplifter, which means I see people as already whole. I see them as vibrant, joyful, magnificent, and powerful. I see the source within them, which leads them to a powerful truth from within. I see them living in alignment with self, having such wonderful beliefs that make them stay in their joyful, natural element. Today, I'm pondering freedom. Now, freedom as we often define it is the right to act, speak, or think as we wish without restraint or interference. But when freedom is guided only by an unexamined ego, it can become reactive rather than conscious. What we call freedom sometimes turns into impulsiveness or expression without awareness. And when that happens, it can unintentionally create division, misunderstanding, or even harm. Many of us have practiced freedom in a very particular way. For example, freedom of speech. We exercise it by speaking about what we don't want. It's like walking into a boutique filled with beautiful options, and instead of picking out a few pieces that you like and going on with your day, you get so upset at the owner for putting some outfits on display that are offensive to you. You completely take the focus away from the many different options you have and instead focus on the outfits that make you upset. So you talk about it, you call others over to point it out, you form little groups around your shared dislike, you analyze it, criticize it, and protest it. You form groups to stop the spread of such outfits all over the world. Now your attention to it actually multiplies it in your reality. Your sensitization against people who sell such outfits has suddenly increased the number of people selling them, and now everywhere you look, someone's resting this offensive outfit or someone's selling this offensive outfit. And in doing so, it can feel like you're exercising your freedom of speech. You are expressing yourself. You are using your voice. But I began to notice something. When my focus stayed on what I did not want, my inner state did not feel free. It felt reactive. It felt contracted. It made me even see the problem more, because my attention to the thing that's unwanted only multiplied it in my experience. And even if temporary satisfaction came from speaking against something, it never felt complete, because pushing against something often keeps it active in our awareness. Even if one version of it disappears, say you're able to get all the boutiques in your town closed, more boutiques will soon start to open somewhere else, and the cycle continues. When will you ever be able to find true satisfaction? There are many things that are unjust, and it's illogical to expect that you can handle them all. So is freedom really the ability to oppose what we dislike, or is it the ability to deliberately focus on what we wish to expand? To me, freedom shifted from being an external right to an internal power. Not the power to eliminate what I don't prefer, but the power to choose what I want and focus only on that. That felt different. That felt expansive. True freedom has very little to do with what we often think it is. So what is true freedom? True freedom for me came after I realized that I am the creator of my own reality. That one belief took responsibility from everyone else and gave me back my innate power. When that knowing settled into my body, I felt a joy I can't fully describe, simply because I could no longer look outward to blame or play the victim. Everything from then on was my responsibility. For the first time, I stopped seeing myself as someone life was happening to, and began seeing myself as someone life was happening through. That shift changed everything. It didn't mean I blamed myself for painful moments. It meant I realized I always have creative authority in how I respond, what I focus on, and what I cultivate next. And that meant I could begin again at any moment. That to me is true freedom. When I took responsibility for my own experience. And how do you create your reality, you may ask? I'll say it again, through your beliefs. And how are beliefs formed? Through your thoughts, what you're constantly thinking about. So think of beliefs as fences you build around yourself. As far as your beliefs extend, so does the distance between you and those fences. The space you perceive within your fences is defined by what you believe is possible. The beliefs you hold can either free you or limit you. It's been said, argue for your limitations, and sure enough you'll have them. Because within the boundaries you defend, you live. Within limitation, the fences are drawn close. In freedom, the fences are drawn farther and farther out. And perhaps the journey is not about violently tearing down every fence at once, but about steadily expanding them, thought by thought, belief by belief. Think of all the things you can put into your fences. Now, if you have fences drawing in on you, you can't fit much in there. So you cannot see wider. You have a limitation. There's a lot you can't imagine. You can't even have certain emotions. Yet when fences are wider, extended, broken, then you can see so much clearer. You can fit so much within your fences. What beliefs you hold will give you freedom or limit you. We have learned to exercise our freedom within the limited space in our fences, and we call that freedom. So giving responsibility to someone else to feel free is like feeling free within your limitations. It feels free to you because that's as far as you can imagine. Taking the responsibility back points to you and only you to break down those fences. Then you can start to consciously work on the beliefs you have, and only then will you have freedom that is expansive. The deeper goal may not be no fences, but the realization that the field has always been larger than the boundaries you once accepted. In freedom, conscious awareness expands. In freedom, you begin to recognize that much of what feels solid and fixed is shaped by perception. You begin to see how powerful interpretation truly is. Human beings come forth with creative capacity. There is something within us that knows we are not meant to be internally bound. That is why we pursue freedom so passionately. We sense it, we remember it, even if we cannot always explain it. We often look for freedom as an outward experience, more rights, more options, fewer restrictions. But freedom is a deeply internal realization. You are far more spacious than the beliefs you are currently practicing. And until you begin to consciously expand those beliefs, you may not fully realize how free you actually are. In relationships, for example, someone might say, I want to be with somebody who gives me freedom. And I would gently offer this: no one can truly give you freedom. You experience freedom within yourself first, and then you begin to notice it reflected back to you. Freedom is not something another person hands over. It is something you embody, and from that embodiment, your relationships begin to reorganize. How? Through the understanding that you are participating in the creation of your own experience. Be deliberate. When you start taking responsibility for your inner world, everything shifts. You begin to examine your beliefs. You begin to notice the thoughts that arise automatically when you think about love, money, commitment, independence, freedom, closeness. What do you expect? What do you assume? What feels familiar? What can you imagine? When you see clearly how your beliefs shape your perception, you begin to understand something powerful, that you always get what you concentrate upon. The choices may not always feel obvious, but they are often embedded in what you repeatedly focus on. If your attention is consistently on how someone limits you, controls you, or restricts you, that focus strengthens that version of the experience in your awareness. Not because the other person doesn't make their own choices, but because what you focus on grows in your experience. And sometimes, without realizing it, we participate in reinforcing the very dynamic we say we want to escape. That is non-blame. That is creative awareness. And awareness is the doorway back to freedom. Most people associate money with freedom, and it makes sense. Money touches so many aspects of our experience in this reality: where we live, how we move, what options we perceive as available. So yes, having money can feel like freedom because you have choices. But even having it all does not automatically make you free. If you still believe that freedom comes from something outside of you rather than from within, you may find yourself wealthy in resources yet limited in perception. Because freedom is not measured by how much you possess, it is measured by how much responsibility you're taking for your own creation. If your inner state still depends on circumstances lining up perfectly, then no amount of money will secure the kind of freedom you're actually seeking. True freedom begins when you recognize that your attention is the real currency. What you're constantly concentrating upon shapes your experience far more than what you accumulate. So instead of trying to control every outer condition, begin by observing what you are energizing within. That is where freedom either expands or contracts. Your true being is a free, creative being, joyful, eager, expansive. That is why being in alignment feels so liberating. In that state, there is no resistance. You are simply allowing the larger, non-physical part of you to flow freely through this physical experience. It is no wonder that freedom ranks among our most expansive emotions, because when you begin to understand that what true freedom is, you realize you are not dependent on anyone or anything to authorize your joy. You no longer need someone to behave a certain way for you to feel good. You no longer need conditions to line up perfectly before you allow yourself ease. There's a clarity that comes with this awareness, a steady knowing that your inner state is creative. And with that knowing, you begin to see something powerful. You participate in both your sense of freedom and your sense of limitation. The choice of where you place your attention remains yours. And perhaps that is all that freedom really is: alignment with who you truly are. Now let's draw some distinctions between real freedom and regular freedom. Regular freedom is the freedom most people think of, maybe freedom of speech, freedom to live a relationship, freedom to make money any way you want, freedom to travel, freedom from rules, freedom from oppression. It's external. It depends on circumstances. It says, I'll feel free when I have enough money, when I leave this job, when this person changes, when the government changes, when my past stops affecting me. It is conditional freedom, and it is fragile because it can be taken away, or at least it feels like it can. The freedom I'm talking about is internal sovereignty. It says, nothing outside of me has creative authority. It is the knowing that I am choosing my focus. My focus activates experience. My thoughts shape perception, and my beliefs shape reality. This freedom doesn't mean you control everything externally. It means you understand your role in everything you experience, and that changes everything. Regular freedom is the ability to move through the world. True freedom is the awareness that you are shaping the world you move through. Regular freedom is about options. True freedom is about identity. Regular freedom says, I have choices. True freedom says, I'm the chooser. Regular freedom says, I want more options. True freedom says, I create the field from which options arise. Regular freedom tries to escape circumstances. True freedom understands that circumstances reflect your beliefs back to you. So instead of running, you adjust your focus. You soften resistance, you become deliberate. That is the freedom that cannot be revoked, even in chaos, in heartbreak, in uncertainty. Regular freedom still reacts. True freedom responds. Regular freedom says, I need things to go my way. True freedom says, I trust my alignment and I choose my perception. That is freedom. Freedom isn't the absence of control. It's the absence of fear that something outside of you controls your becoming. Regular or circumstantial freedom may satisfy you at the surface, but true freedom expands you at the core. When freedom is creative knowing, it feels like expansion. Regular freedom says, I escaped something. Creative or true freedom says, I remembered who I am. Regular freedom is having many choices. True freedom is knowing your state doesn't depend on the choices. Regular freedom is having access. True freedom is having alignment, because access can be removed, alignment cannot. There is a freedom that comes from changing your circumstances, and then there's a freedom that comes from changing your understanding of yourself. One rearranges the outside, the other reorganizes your identity. And once identity shifts, circumstances follow, because you are the creator of your own reality. I'm Amara, and I'm pondering for the freedom to ponder. I love you all. Focus on feeling good. Bye.